Dear colleagues and friends, I appreciate very much the opportunity of welcoming you all to this first webinar in the series of webinars, Careers in Law. And in this particular webinar, we would learn more about how to answer questions such as, will an LLM degree increase my employability, or will it help as a stepping stone in my career? And today we are very pleased to welcome on board Mr. Prabhu Tandon, who is a partner at Rachna and Associates and has an expertise in handling intellectual property rights matters. Next, we are welcoming Mr. Sanjay Vashisht, who is a partner at Vashisht Law Offices, and he is a criminologist as well as a practicing advocate. We also have with us Mr. Ajay Thomas, who is the director at Faculty of Law, Manav Rachna University. I welcome you all, sir. I also welcome the attendees and the participants of this webinar. Now, today, our esteemed panelists will be sharing their journey and expert opinion on how a specialized LLM can benefit our and yours law practice. With that, I ask you to give your full attention to Mr. Prabhu Tandon as he narrates his journey in the legal field. Mr. Prabhu Tandon.
Hi, good morning, everybody. First of all, I hope I am audible to everyone. So let's begin. So I think it was 3 weeks back, or no, not more. I think 2 months back. Sorry, when we did similar lecture at Manav Rachna University. Is that correct, Thomas?
Yes, it was. It was about 4 weeks ago. Time flies.
2 weeks ago. Time flies, right? So this is going to be a pretty much of reiteration of what we discussed that day, and it was a pretty good seminar, which a lot of people probably missed. So let's do this again now. So to begin with, I do come from a legal background already. Having said this, because coming from the legal background has got its certain advantages. One of the advantages that you are in touch with a lot of lawyers since your childhood, and hence you start getting guidance much earlier, and it's time that we share that guidance with you all as well. Probably you can take certain pointers from here, how to go about it. Certain things which will obviously have a bearing in your mind while pursuing your law, and after you're done with your law, is how to make a good career out of this. A lot of students are thinking whether they want to go into litigation, or they want to join a good law firm or start in-house. These are the major things which are getting into the head of the student at certain point in time. And then there is guidance coming in from so many different places. It leads to certain chaos or confusion in somebody's head. One part of that chaos and confusion is whether you should be pursuing an LLM or not. Well, the answer is no straight yes or no straight no. LLM has got huge benefits. It all depends how do you want to take that benefit. Needless to say that it also comes with a dent in the pocket. So you have to weigh that as well, whether you want to put the dent now after you complete your law, you want to spend some time practicing law and then take that leap. So a lot of factors will come in, including what background you come from, what is exactly that you're looking forward to as a career in law. So there are times when you have already decided during your internship that probably you just want to go into litigation, and this is where you want to make your bread and butter. It does not mean that LLM is not important then, but it also means that LLM at that point in time can for some time take a back seat. Then comes if you want to apply to good multinational companies, or you want to work in-house or in a law firm, and then you're looking forward to weigh out the other by having a better resume. And is an LLM then helping you to do that? In certain scenarios, the answer can be yes, the answer can be no. So let's now talk about how I went ahead for this. This was what Aditi wanted me to discuss primarily in a question. So after finishing my law, I started working in a then small law firm, now a pretty big law firm called Suri and Company. At that point in time, honestly, LLM was not in my head. I was not thinking about LLM. I wanted to be into litigation. I got a job into a decent small, at that point in time, a small law firm into litigation. Started my journey from there. After spending like around 2 years in litigation, I bumped upon a case on intellectual property rights. It was at that point it was a very famous case, Metro Shoes case, family dispute related, and IPR. And honestly, I didn't even have IPR as a subject in my law college. And this is the first time I started spending time with this subject. I found the subject really, really interesting, and that's when I thought that this is one thing I want to have a deeper delve into. So I started initially finding out about diplomas in IPR, but because I was working at as well, it was difficult for me to pursue a litigation career and do a full-time diploma from ILI or any other place. So I found an online diploma at WIPO. So I completed that diploma, but the urge continued for me to study more about this subject. And Suri and Company was not a IP law firm, IP boutique firm like you have Anand and Anand, the one I work right now, Sai Krishna and Associates, Rem3 and Sagar, Lal and Sethi. So there was always going to be a dearth of IP related cases. I was just lucky to get into one. That is when I started my research that if I want to work into an IP firm, my just litigation experience might not hold good for me to get into an IP firm, and I will need a IP related uh, specialization for me to make a decent resume to get into a decent IP firm. So I started with my research, started applying. Obviously, when you start applying for your LLM, you have mostly two jurisdictions coming to your head: USA and UK. And I'm talking 2006, so it's a different story now. So your research has to be much different than what I did at that point in time. Because there are other law colleges and other universities in other countries also which have come up in the meanwhile. In any case, so I was lucky. I got admission into King's College in London. But there's a reason I got that admission. What we need to understand is this. When you apply for an LLM, it really, really matters what university you come from, what grades do you get, what are the other qualifications besides academics, what are your other areas of interest where you have achieved something. It's a holistic view that a university will take for you to get into an LLM. Having said this, grades matter the most, and this is when you are applying directly after law. But in my case, I had spent good 2 years in my legal profession before I started applying. So 2 years of work ex really mattered a lot to get into a good university. So put that as a pointer for you that having work ex on the backside will upgrade you to a better university or a law college when you apply for LLM. Keep that in mind always. So uh, because I had thought about that my specialization is going to be IP, I took all three. I took three subjects in IP and one subject in international commercial comparative arbitration. certain things which you will really enjoy when if at all you go for an LLM is the kind of subjects that you get to study. Those subjects as a topic probably you will not even find in India, right? So I took one trademark and industrial property law. I took international comparative copyright law. I took IPR and digital millennium and one arbitration subject, which gave me a specialization in IPR. The advantage at that point only, I got an offer in an Indian law firm called Lal and Sethi. And by the time I finished it, it was 2008, and that was the time of the great recession that you saw earlier on. So hence the foreign market was not really good, but I still had a very good offer in India already. So it did have a big advantage. One, having a work experience in litigation, and two, having a specialization in IPR. And then it gave me an opportunity in a very good IP law firm, Lal and Sethi, and that's where the career starts. I think till from the beginning of the planning of LLM to the start of the first job and landing the first job in LLM in IPR, I think I've covered all. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you very much, sir. I must remark that's quite a long way from choosing IP as your electives to being a partner in one of the most renowned IP law firms in India. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. I would now request Mr. Sanjay Vashisht to narrate his story and how his master's degree helped him carve a niche for himself in not just litigation practice, but also as a criminologist. Before that, I would request all the participants to please share their questions in the question box, and we will be taking up your questions one by one once our distinguished speakers have shared their ideas and views on the topic. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Sanjay Vashisht.
Thank you, Aditi. Mr. Tandon, in fact, covered many important points which I was planning to cover. I would rather discuss other issues. I think so far as my journey is concerned, it does overlap with Mr. Tandon. I am also a third generation lawyer, come from a family of lawyers and judges. And it does give you an edge. It gives you a lot of room to decide about your, LLM prospects, and gives you a lot of leverage in terms of allowing you to see various streams of laws, witness various streams of laws. It gives you an opportunity to scrutinize your interest areas, which otherwise we only have access to once we venture into litigation or the corporate world or the intellectual property rights arena, as Mr. Tandon pointed out. Now, so far as my journey is concerned, I after graduating from law, started practicing in the High Court, Supreme Court, our own office. I kind of thought, and in fact, there was a lot of encouragement. My time was briefly different from that of Mr. Tandon. He got into LLM, I believe, in 2006. I started 2012, 13 onwards. We had a lot of online resources, then a lot of seminars on LLMs then, and luckily I was able to see and find out certain universities in UK, US, and Canada. I was always interested in criminology, criminal justice, and criminal law for that matter. For me, there was one hindrance, that was my father was very particular about scholarships. He was like, I am not going to spoon feed you, and so far as LLM is concerned, you have to get some scholarships. There is no way, because there is a family background of scholarships as well. My father had done all his schooling, graduation, post graduation, everything in on scholarships, and he was very adamant that since you were able to score well, I mean, throughout my law school journey, I was publishing articles. I was involved in NGOs and other government projects and all. Luckily, I got a scholarship at McGill University in Canada. So I got into LLM in comparative criminal law. It was a very interdisciplinary setting. So this is one good thing about LLM. It gives you a lot of insight into multidisciplinarity. So everything is interlinked in a very good way. For me, criminal law was criminal law till I got into LLM. But after I got into this program, I was made privy to the multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity aspect of criminology and criminal justice. For me, criminal law was limited to an accused, but then it was about the victim, the secondary victim, primary victim, the offender, the family of the offender. So it's a lot of insight into so many things which otherwise are not the subject matter of discussion in our law schools. We really study subjects as subjects, A for apple, B for ball, but there it was very different, and the kind of faculties were also very different. So one of our professors were from Supreme Court of Canada. They were also judges over there from the Court of Appeal of Ontario and then Quebec. So you see that there was, I think, evidence law was taught by a prosecutor, crown attorney from Quebec. I think this exposure really gave me a deeper insight into common law and the mixed law system. And since it was a comparative LLM, we really went on to study different jurisdiction, the adversarial system, the inquisitorial system. This was very important. It really helps me today as well. My scholarship initially was one from my university itself, and the other one from some bar council, and then one from government of Canada. And then there are scholarships which are merit-based scholarships, where you do well and you are given some benefit by working hard at your institution. There are options to financially support yourself. I worked as a research assistant. I was getting like $9, $10 per hour. I think so far as financial aspect is concerned, if you really want to self-support, you could totally do that. There are opportunities. My journey then transitioned into a second master's. I got into reform center. There was a reformation center where we were trying to study retributive rehabilitative theories and all. uh, uh, Justice Patrick Haley, at present I believe he is a court of appeal judge from Quebec province in Canada. He told me that this is your subject matter of interest. I was always curious to specialize in criminology and criminal justice. Some point in time, I applied for some scholarships at University of Oxford. I thought I really want to study criminology in detail, and criminology, because see, 1 year of LLM, it's like 2-3 months of adjustment. You find a place for yourself. And Montreal was a bilingual place. I studied French for 2-3 years over here, but that wasn't enough. Once you go there, you realize that the accent is a major issue, and then there are so many other problems. So you really take some time to adjust and then get used to the environment, and there are so many things that one has to do. I got Saint Cross University of Oxford scholarship. I got lucky that Justice Patrick Haley was pleased to refer me, and so many other things. There was a conditional offer from University of Oxford. I ended up meeting all the conditions and started immediately after my LLM. Started a MSc in Criminology and Criminal Justice from University of Oxford. The funding might vary. I think University College London and King's College London give me a 100% scholarship then. London School of Economics was, I think, I applied everywhere. I think one has to really apply at barring Cambridge, I believe. So there are options out there for scholarships as well. I think my friends were given so many scholarships from India. There was, I think, Rhodes, obviously, and 2-3 other scholarships. So there are scholarships available in India, then institutional scholarships, and then obviously other financial scholarships out there. Oxford, I got some scholarships. I then thought, okay, might as well study criminology, and went there and did my criminology and criminal justice. I was always keen in studying victimology. Then again, death penalty is a very serious issue in our country. I was really working with the Department of Criminology over there. I'm still associated with Department of Criminology at University of Oxford as a research associate in India. It has really helped me in many ways. After coming back, I was able to then work with National Crime Record Bureau (BPRND). This is alongside my practice in the High Court, Supreme Court, trial courts as a criminal law practitioner. As a criminologist, you really study crime as a deeper subject, and this is only possible due to specialization, because you really get into the techniques of research, which is otherwise not possible as undergraduate students of law. It is something you only venture into with specially skilled professionals out there. This is a very deeper. It requires a lot of training and a lot of interdisciplinary research to get into these aspects. So I was able to formulate some research projects and detailed project reports for PPRND, Bureau of Police Research and Development. I'm still associated with Delhi Police Training Specialized Training Center, and this is all I believe due to my background in criminology and criminal justice. Um, and more than anything, it gives you a network of friends and professionals across the globe. You continue to learn. I think more than anything, I've been able to get in touch with the finest professionals from across the world, and to be able to learn from them, to able to work with them. I recall, I think in 2017 or 16, we were trying to partner with some organizations in France. So, as my friend is a magistrate over there, they had their own projects over there. Then we got the Department of Criminology at Oxford to, and attempts were made to, work with the government of India. It's a wonderful setting to have, and it gives you a very different exposure. But one has to analyze the financial aspect. Obviously, my journey might sound a bit encouraging, but no matter the scholarships, unless it's obviously roads where you are given, I think, £1,000 a month to sustain your standard of living, other than every other aspect already covered, tuition fees and other fees. There were programs out there. I think I was fortunate to get these positions for research associate. Even at Oxford, I was getting my scholarship. So Oxford has a different setting. You have a college, then your department. You can apply for scholarships both at your department and obviously at your center. Scholarships are very rare, I have to admit. I think I was one of very few students to get these scholarships. And these are merit based. Most of them are merit based. You do well, you have to really perform. It's a objective. There was a lot of criticism from global south about the merit based scholarships, that these are limited for people who are able to score well in terms of grading. It's not about grading. It's about it's about meritocracy. There was a lot of dispute on that aspect, but they are limited to marks and moreover your performance in your lecture and seminars. So scholarships, yes, you can work there, but my temporary employment, whatever you may choose to label it, was also a hindrance at times, as what a slow network. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are very much audible. Please
I'm sorry, I
go on.
received that. So yes, that was a problem. It's not very easy to work and study at the same time. There were deadlines which I had to meet. So one has to consider all these aspects. But I would suggest, if possible, one should pursue LLM. Either which ways, it has really helped me in my professional career, and I feel it continues to help me on daily basis more than anything. Thank you, Aditi. I think we may continue.
Thank you very much, sir, for touching upon extremely pertinent issues regarding LLM. And it is very encouraging for our students who have joined us also, I'm sure, to know how LLM has provided you with such sumptuous opportunities, if I may say. Thank you very much. Our esteemed panelist, Mr. Ajay Thomas, who is also a director at Faculty of Law, Manav Rachna University. I would request him to kindly share his views on the topic.
Thank you, Aditi, for your kind invitation. And it's a pleasure to be with you on this panel, Prabhu, as well as Sanjay. We're grateful you've joined us on a Tuesday morning.
It's a working day still.
Absolutely. So makes it all the more special for us. So let me start off with giving you probably an insight into how I ended up doing my LLM and the utility that I derived from doing an LLM. Now, the reasons I did an LLM were very different from the distinguished panelists, insofar as I did an LLM after 5 years in the profession. And for me, an LLM was an opportunity, a window to see life beyond India. 5 years in the profession, I was 28 years old, and I realized that there was much more to law, the practice of law, and life, what I saw in India. And that is when I decided that it's now or never. I need to get out of India, travel around the world, see the world, study overseas, work if possible overseas, and then come back to India, because I knew that the new India which was emerging in the early 2000s would give somebody with an international perspective a greater and a better opportunity to derive the benefits of the new India. So that was my reason actually to do an LLM. So which was very different from the intellectual pursuit which Sanjay and Prabhu had. So for me, it was an opportunity to get out and see the world, but at the same time, I didn't want the guilt of just not doing anything. I wanted to see the world and at the same time upgrade my skill sets and learn something new about a new area of the law. So I started my profession. I pursued an LLM after 5 years in the profession. I started off with the Bombay High Court, working as a junior counsel at the senior advocates chambers, practicing essentially in shipping and maritime law. So I was essentially a shipping and maritime lawyer. So the two universities that I had shortlisted were the University of Cape Town in South Africa and the National University of Singapore in Singapore. It so happened that NUS Singapore came in before the University of Cape Town, and that is how I sailed on a ship and ended up in Singapore and pursued my master's in Singapore. Again, it was an act of sheer coincidence that when I was at the university in Singapore, to complete my course requirements, in addition to shipping and maritime subjects, I needed to take more electives. And that's when I realized that I should probably do and take more electives in the field of arbitration. Little did I know then, in 2005, that I would end up being an arbitration practitioner and ultimately an arbitrator. So again, this was LLM gave me an opportunity of sorts of changing my area of specialization. And for me, it was just sheer coincidence that I ended up on the course and I had to take more electives. I took arbitration electives, and it so happened at that time that the Singapore International Arbitration Center was recruiting an Indian lawyer. So there I was in Singapore in 2005, 2006, in my first semester of my LLM, and I had an opportunity, I had a job offer from the Singapore International Arbitration Center telling me that if I successfully completed my course, they would be very happy to take me on board as an assistant counsel. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is how I got into the field of arbitration. And for me, that magic words or the magic door which opened the world of arbitration to me was the LLM that I pursued from the National University of Singapore. So for me, what I am today, to a large extent, is the decision that I took to do a master's, and where I am today is also a result of that decision that I took to put a stop on my professional life for a year and pursue my master's. Because there are a lot of people who will tell you that doing a master's, doing an LLM, in a way, is an impediment to a successful career, at least in the initial years of your life. Because there is a school of thought which thinks that a one-year LLM is probably putting you back by 1 year when it comes to establishing your legal practice. But for me, it was very different. My perspective and my experience with my LLM was very different. It gave me a window of opportunity to get into the world of arbitration. It was an area of the law that I had no exposure to. And today, 15 years down the line after my LLM, I look back at my LLM with very fond memories of having provided me with an opportunity to change an area of my specialization, to move from shipping law to arbitration. And it is also a course which gave me tremendous international exposure. I must admit that I would have probably been monetarily better off had I not uh, changed ships by moving from shipping law to arbitration. But when I look at it in hindsight, I think the exposure that I got to the dynamics of international commercial arbitration was tremendous, and that was only because of the LLM that I pursued. So ladies and gentlemen, I think an LLM can add a lot of value to your legal practice. It can open a lot of doors to areas of the law which you thought you had, which you thought didn't exist. It can give you very good connections into the legal world, because many a times when you do an LLM from overseas, your colleagues on the same batch probably would be people who can, in the years to come, give you work. They would be in a position to necessarily refer work to you. So don't lose sight of that perspective, that angle when it comes to your LLM. And don't look at an LLM purely from an academic perspective. My sense is you have to look at it beyond academia. An LLM gives you a platform where you can interact with some of the best brains in the world. It gives you insights. It gives you an opportunity to interact with very good professionals from the legal world. And it is those opportunities of interacting with the best minds in the world, the best minds in India, which is something, is an angle you should not lose sight of. Lots of students lose sight of that perspective by getting overtly involved in academia. You have to emphasize on academic activities, but beyond that, if you want your LLM to add value to your legal practice, you also need to make a bit of effort in actually networking as much as you can. So, Aditi, these are a few of my preliminary observations and views on what value an LLM can actually offer to your legal practice. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you, sir, for offering an insight into how LLM opens new possibilities and new avenues in your practicing career. And I am sure it would be very pertinent to our audience here to know about such avenues and opportunities. I would like the panel to address a few common queries, which I'm sure most students and young practitioners may have regarding masters. And I often, when you are a fresh graduate, when you freshly graduate from a law school, it is seen that it's commonly seen that they are at a crossroads, whether to choose practice or go for a placement or go for higher studies, that is LLM. So I would like the panel to clarify and address this common concern of all the law students who may have joined us also, about how to go ahead with this decision. Please. If I may request Mr. Tandon.
All right. So I think if you put this question to all those who have done an LLM, you might find a different response from everybody, because everybody would have gone for the LLM in different times and different uh, uh, for different reasons. So I don't have a straight jacket formula or answer for this, but I can tell you from what I did, and it worked for me at least. So in my view, because a general LLM in just general law does not make too much of sense to me in case uh, you have to come back and work in India. It's a time when you have to specialize into a subject, and to find that what is the subject that you really want to spend time in specialize into, it's important that you first work in India, and you find the right area of your interest. Once you are able to do that, once you're able to find the right area of your interest, then for me it makes more sense to go ahead and pursue a specialized LLM in that subject. If you go for a general LLM, or even if you specialize into something which probably you are not aware about on the basic level, the LLM per se might not be of that much of a value to you. So uh, what I realize is that work for some time, find out the area which really interests you, and then go in for a specialized LLM in that subject.
Right, sir. So to reiterate your words, interest in the core specialization area is very important if you wish to succeed in and become an expert in that particular area. Thank you very much. If I would also like to ask the panel that it is a common misconception that criminal law is a traditional subject and there's not much to explore or offer in this field. What is your take, Mr. Vashisht, on this?
I think one could just continue to study the subject for the rest of their lives, and it wouldn't suffice. I think once you start exploring, you realize that this is a universe. It never ends, and depending on your subject of study, depending on your interests, you may want to focus on that element. See, criminal law is a very vast stream. It's only when you start your LLM you realize you might want to focus on the victim, victimology, penology, or criminology, or for that matter, penal semantics. We study and decipher penal code. What do we mean by a particular word? Is it rehabilitative, reformative, or deterrent? So it's a science, and I think we should not put any limits to any discipline for that matter. I think one can really go on to venture into their interests. I think you see a book on criminology in my background. This is like a general book. It covers every stream of criminology. But then you might want to venture into victimology. It's a stream which continues to have articles on daily basis. We have been discussing domestic violence, increase in domestic violence during the ongoing pandemic. The criminologists really never imagined the situation happening, and this would highlight the significance of criminal justice as not being obsolete subject. This requires a lot of in-depth study and analysis for that matter.
Right. Speaking of pandemic, if I were in the audience, I would want to know what effect has this COVID-19 outbreak on the profession, and how should the law students and young practitioners wanting to be a part of the profession, how should they face the challenge? Which skills should they equip themselves with? It's a very pertinent, I believe, a concern for everybody these days.
I think Ajay, if you can give some suggestions
Hello.
on this.
Yeah, sorry. So skill sets, I think the greatest takeaway from this COVID-19 pandemic is, I think, the emphasis on e-teaching, e-tools, working from home. The very fact that we are doing this seminar online, we're doing it through a online meeting platform, I think is indicative of what are the skill sets that all lawyers should have in their arsenal in the years to come. And my sense is that this is going to be the new normal when it comes not only to how a lawyer interacts with clients, but also how a lawyer would probably interact with the public justice system. If you see what is happening in the courts, especially in the high courts and the Supreme Court, hearings have gone online, and I think there is no going back. So my take is that this dark cloud of COVID-19 has a big silver lining, and the silver lining is, I think, all of us have realized the importance of information technology tools, and I think that's the biggest takeaway, that we should be emphasizing and developing skill sets in this area, because I think this is an easy way to save time and costs. Let me give you a clear example in the field of arbitration. There was a great emphasis earlier on personal meetings and personal hearings. Thanks to COVID-19, a lot of the preliminary meetings and even hearing stage of arbitrations have gone online. A few months ago, probably just in February, March, this was unthinkable when it came to the arbitration scene in India. But today, thanks to the inevitability of information technology as the only savior, everybody, lawyers as well as arbitrators, many of them who are very experienced retired judges, have all adopted technology, and to a large extent, they've adopted technology because there is no other option to remain relevant in this world. Technology is the only way forward. So I think these are skill sets, technological skill sets, ability to conduct proceedings, hearings online, familiarity with different online meeting and webinar platforms. These are skill sets, I think, which will come in very, very handy for law students as they chart a career in the law.
Thank you very much, sir. I would also like to ask you about.
Sorry.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, go on.
Just to share my brief experience, I think I've been appearing almost every day on behalf of National Law University and other government bodies where I'm associated with. I think it has really installed this court craft into us. We are usually over speaking one another in a courtroom setting. But so far as the virtual court is concerned, the court master is managing and controlling every orator, and it really gives you a better insight into courtcraft as well. The idea is to stay updated with the technological insights from the courts, there is a circular or two every other day. And this will equip you to better assist your clients. Thank you.
Aditi, I believe there is a question. There's a question which has come in from Snigdha Chandra that to a large extent, I think, is addressed at Prabhu Tandon. I think it says, how much doing an LLM and IPR is helpful in the future for a career in IPR? And she's a fresher, having just and
Little
a
knowledge.
brief insight into IPR.
Yes.
So how useful is an LLM in IPR for somebody who has no experience in IPR? Is it worthwhile doing an LLM in IPR when you have no experience?
So you do the masters after you know the basics, right? You don't straight away go for the masters. It's important that you do the basics first so that the understanding of the masters is something that you can really imbibe and then take an advantage of it. I would recommend straight away rather than going for a master's, first do your, obviously once you're taught in the college, try doing a diploma. There are online courses also available. Do that. Try doing your internships in IPR where you get to do certain research. See the subject. It's become a extremely vast subject now as compared to when I did my IPR, because at that time technology was not really uh, that big a ball game as much as it is now. Uh, for example, e-commerce was not even there at that point in time. Amazon had just started, but had not started facing challenges. Right? So a huge amount of jurisprudence has developed on this subject. Uh, Rather than going straight away mindlessly for an IPR just to land up a job in IPR, first see the subject to sort of more than a basic level over here. Find out in IPR also there are like a lot of specializations now. For example, uh, cross-border jurisdictional disputes in IPR and e-commerce is one subject now. Music law is another subject altogether, which revolves mostly around copyrights. Information technology has a lot of IP related tangents along with it. Similarly, competition law comes with a lot of IP related issues. So get a grasp of what do you actually want to specialize into, and be very extremely focused about what you want to study in IPR also, because as Mr. Vashisht earlier mentioned that those scholarships are available. It's not easy to get them, and if you're not getting them, then you are putting a dent in your pocket, like the way I did. The and then a long part of your career goes in repayment of the loans, right? So be extremely focused on what do you want to do rather than just going there and getting into an LLM mindlessly. You have, if you're going for it, then you have to make the most of it in all respects. Whatever I would want to say. Plus one more thing which will happen to you after, in case you do an LLM, is uh, is that your personality is gonna really change after once you start interacting with a lot of foreign nationals. Once you start studying a subject in altogether different settings, once you see the subject from the point of view of applying the law rather than just learning the law and vomiting it, it's going to be a very good experience. But before you go for that experience, be sure that what exactly are you looking from it, in terms of whether you want to work in that country where you do your LLM, because your choice of university and country is going to change drastically after that. Once you think about that, then if you're thinking that you want to come back to India and work, then be very careful about the subjects that you choose. Aditi.
Okay, so thank you. I hope that solves Ms. Nigna Chandra's query. There's also very a commonplace concern for all the students that should they do their LLM in India or abroad? especially when there is a dearth of good courses in international commercial arbitration being offered in Indian law schools and such other courses. What will you recommend? What will be the panel's advice to students in that regard? If Mr. Ajay Thomas could address this, please.
Sure. Aditi, I believe things have changed drastically from the days when I did an LLM to what they are today. Doing a LLM from overseas has become exorbitantly expensive. If you're looking at a US university without scholarship, you are looking anywhere between 80 lakh rupees to 1 crore rupees. If you're looking at a UK LLM for a year, you're looking at anywhere between 35 to 40 lakh rupees. Singapore used to be a very value for money option until a few years ago. But even today, an LLM from Singapore will set you back by nothing less than 25 to 30 lakh rupees. So doing an LLM overseas today is become a frightfully expensive proposition. So unless you have financial backing or a scholarship, to most students, I believe today, a master's doing an LLM overseas is increasingly becoming a pipe dream. Now, so having said that, there have been a few developments in the LLM scene in India today. Earlier, you had people doing an LLM merely for the purposes of a career in academia. An LLM was a route to getting a PhD and then getting into academia. But that has changed in the recent past. In addition to your 2-year LLM, you also have a 1-year LLM, just like you have it overseas. And my observations have been that these 1-year LLMs are essentially pursued by practitioners who want to A, add some value to an LLB degree that they have, and B, practitioners who want to specialize in a particular area. I see that trend with a lot of litigators, general litigators who have spent a few years doing general routine litigation, and then after 3 or 4 years want to specialize in a particular area. Say, for example, a specialization in LLM in IPR or an LLM, say, in international commercial arbitration. So that is now something which is becoming increasingly attractive to a lot of young lawyers in India because of the sheer fact that the quality levels at the LLMs offered by Indian universities have increased. The time duration has decreased from 2 years to 1 year, and that foreign LLM has become exorbitantly expensive. So these are three reasons why I believe the popularity of the 1-year LLM amongst young Indian lawyers and fresh graduates has increased tremendously in the past few years. Prabhu or
I just
Sanjay,
want to add
do you
over
have
here.
anything to add to this?
Yes,
Please.
I just want to add over here. Sanjay, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. So apart from what Ajay just mentioned, uh, one thing which everybody must look into and research is the online LLM courses which are now available. I know at least two guys. One is at a general counsel level in a company. I don't want to name the company or the guy. And another one again at a vice president level, pursuing LLM from Queen's Mary University in IPR. And I've seen their syllabus, I've seen the modules which are available and the way they are teaching. One thing is you still have to pay the entire tuition fee, but the entire cost of living goes away, and it's the way they are doing it is fantastic. So do your research in that as well, whether you really if and this kind of LLM is done only if you have deep want and deep want inside you to understand and read more about the subject and get a qualification. So the reasons to do an online LLM may differ from the reasons from doing a regular LLM, but I'm just talking about the availability of these courses online, and they're doing pretty fine with that. So just keep that in your head.
Thank you
Sanjay, might
very
you
much.
have something to add on that?
No, I think that's a wonderful point. I think one could, in fact, join. There might be geographical barriers or other reasons as to why one may not be able to physically go abroad. But yes, it appears as a viable option. In fact, I am also privy to some colleagues and friends who have now started this online. I think there have been a series of courses online launched by Harvard Law School, and they are free of cost for the duration of this pandemic. Harvard Law School has launched some online courses and LLM program as well, to the best of my knowledge. One could again, thanks to globalization and the availability of information and technology, you can stay updated while staying at your place. But yes, I totally agree with Mr. Thomas as well. I think the world is I think there is absolutely there are institutions in India which are now competing with international universities. I think as a council to NLU Delhi, special council to NLU Delhi, I see there is a center for criminology, for instance, at National Law University Delhi, and they are equipped with state-of-the-art library infrastructure. Criminologists, there have been speakers who are traveling to India. For instance, my former director from the Department of Criminology at Oxford, Caroline Noel, he's visiting this center regularly, Professor Roger Wood. So you have all these, professors from these esteemed institutions now coming to India to deliver lectures. So there are endeavors by the Indian universities to provide you with that international exposure and environment. So if for various reasons you are unable to travel outside India, you might consider these universities. Again, the competition is very high and steep, but the options are much better today.
If I may add to what Sanjay said, that's exactly that same reasoning which has made Manav Rachna University also start a specialization in its LLMs. We do have a 1-year LLM as well as a 2-year LLM. And one of the specialization that we have is international arbitration or commercial arbitration, to be more precise. And this, to a large extent, has been because we find that dispute resolution when it comes to commercial matters has moved to a large extent to
Ajay, I believe
arbitration.
you will be taking the course.
I didn't, I lost you, Prabhu.
I believe you will be taking the course.
Yes, Prabhu. In fact,
Can you hear me?
we have set up a Center for Excellence in Alternative Dispute Resolution at Manav Rachna University. And given my expertise in the field of arbitration, I think that is going to be my value add to that LLM course. So that's, I think, and the whole idea is, as Sanjay talked about, certain universities overseas and in India having a specialization and an expertise in a particular niche area. We are also looking at developing arbitration and ADR as a niche at the master's level at Manav Rachna University. Well, it's a beginning. We've had 10 students in the LLM last year, and we hope that we'll have more this year. And so that's an area which is growing, and that's an area where our university is actually looking at being one of the first to be offering a specialized LLM in commercial arbitration.
That is fantastic. And for all those who are attending it, I must tell them that you have a faculty who is not only does arbitration regularly, but is also getting appointed as an arbitrator on a regular basis. So you get to learn from somebody who has been on both sides of the coin. I think that is fantastic.
And also, I've been lucky enough to, visit the campus. It's very, very nice, state of the art, equipped with modern and state of the art equipments. I'm in touch with, some of other faculties as well. I think it's a very nice opportunity. And just to add to this, I think like last week I got this matter from Ministry of Petroleum. It was about international arbitration. We do a lot of domestic arbitration, so I was trying to get in touch with someone who deals with the International Court of Arbitration at Hague. And I've been told, we were discussing something with Justice Korean Joseph the other day, and he was kind enough to, in fact, I think it's very common knowledge out there. Arbitration does appear to be the future of litigation, civil litigation, and it's a very, very pertinent subject. I'm very happy to know that such LLM programs have commenced at Manav Rachna, and I think students should benefit. It's like vicariously learning from those who have been at other jurisdictions as well. So for those who are not planning to travel or want to work and learn simultaneously or any of those ways, I think these programs are bound to benefit you.
We seem to have lost Aditi, I believe. But what there is another school of thought which I don't know how prevalent that is today, which seems to suggest that one should probably not do an LLM at all unless you want to be specializing in a particular area of the law. So do you think that makes
Honestly,
sense? An LLM is something which you will do only to specialize in a particular area? Does it make sense to do a general LLM and not a specialization?
well, in my experience, it makes sense to do an LLM in a specialization, mostly considering this, that one, you will be going to another jurisdiction to and spending money and getting an LLM from there, and you don't come back with any specialization. And I'm now talking from a recruitment perspective, being a partner in a law firm. From that perspective, then if I have somebody who is after his law, him or her gone to a good university, done a general LLM and come back to me, and I have somebody who has done general 2 years of work experience in India in litigation or whatever sphere, I'm going to give more credit to the guy with the work experience coming in before I go with somebody who has done a general LLM from a university and looking at me from a hiring perspective. So I don't completely disagree that there is no relevance of a general LLM, but I'm more inclined in my thought process towards having a specialized LLM when especially it comes to me to recruit somebody at some point in time. So I hope in one way or the other I've answered your question, but this is my thought process.
And I
Sure.
think
Sanjay, do you have anything to add?
I think one should also, I wouldn't really discourage general LLM. I've been talking to some of my friends, in fact, from my batch who did a general LLM. The idea is to equip and empower them to really, get a deeper insight into general subjects, which they otherwise were unable to do by virtue of their understanding of law then. So, this option, I really don't know if this exists outside India. I haven't come across a general LLM, at least at Oxford or McGill, where I've been to. However, I believe the idea behind a general LLM in India, to me, it appears the idea is to, equip practicing lawyers, professionals to get a deeper understanding or insight of general subjects. I think there is an incentive, there's an added motive to promote law as a subject as well.
Great. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much for that. Aditi, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, everybody. I think I lost my connection for a bit out there. I feel if is there any other issue which is left unaddressed, because I think our panel has been most forthcoming and have resolved all the pertinent queries which any young practitioner or a fresh graduate or a law student may have. And if we could conclude the session.
Yes, I believe we are running out of time, Aditi.
Yes, yes. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. And I would especially like to thank our distinguished panelists who have been most brilliant and outstanding, most forthcoming with their views and advice. Thank you very much. And if at all any query is unaddressed and you would want to get in touch with us for further inquiries, I have put it in the question box as an answer with my number there. You could get in touch. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thomas, thank you.